Call the meeting to order. I have two assistant mayors tonight, Alex and Nathan, so it's going to help me out a little bit. So we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Kolpak. Here. Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Health. Last week, Fargo Cast Health and the City of Fargo co-hosted a documentary, Beyond the Bridge, A Solution to Homelessness. About 150 community members attended the event and also featured a panel discussion and a question and answer. This was a follow-up to the series of conversations that took place in February, facilitating James Matthew, Milwaukee County Housing Administrator and author of Milwaukee's Plan to End Chronic Homelessness. Tonight is the final City Commission meeting for Desi Fleming, Director of Fargo Cast Public Health. The entire team of the Fargo Cast Public Health wishes to thank Desi for more than 30 years of dedicated service to her community, her leadership during the pandemic, and the fun and laughter she brought to the office. Also, we're glad she has some dogs to walk. We also wish her the very best with her retirement, and she now has a new replacement. So welcome aboard, Jennifer, and nice to see Desi going off to fun stuff, right? Last week, the City of Fargo issued building permits for the airport parking garage and terminal expansion. The permit for the parking garage was $37.8, and the terminal expansion was $94 million. An official groundbreaking is scheduled July 1st. Library. Residents are encouraged to volunteer this summer for the Carlson Library Learning Garden Plots. Sessions are weekly at 10 a.m. on Thursday mornings, weather permitting. Fargo Public Library staff have a booth at the Fargo Police Community Picnic happening at Broadway Square on June 26th to promote Summer Reading Challenge, along with resources, services, and upcoming events. Planning. The apartment vacancy rate in Fargo is 6.93% as of March 1st, which is down to a third from 7.32% in December of 23. This is still 2.7 higher than a year ago when it dipped to 4.2. Currently, there are 852 apartment units under construction. Apartment permits in 2024 are less than previous years. There have been 2 apartment buildings permitted in 2024, a 110-unit Lasquith building for the Fargo Housing Authority, and 168 Avery by Kilbourne Group, which is adjacent to the new parking ramp on NP Avenue. In 2023, 933 apartments were permitted. In 2022, 945 apartments were permitted. I want to take this opportunity, I think John Gunkelman's in the audience as well, take an opportunity to recognize outgoing members of the Planning Commission. John Gunkelman, Rocky Schneider, and Don Morgan have all provided leadership in the development of neighborhoods and overall community. All 3 are active community members of our core neighborhoods and represent important topics critical to work in the Planning Commission and the City of Fargo. John Gunkelman has served since 2011, Rocky Schneider since 2013, and Don since 2017. I hope all 3 continue to participate in city and community development because they have so much knowledge and expertise. We thank them for their dedication and volunteer spirit of all 3, and also recognize the 3 incoming knowledgeable volunteer members. We are thankful for so many citizens that are interested in being part of their community, and we are eternally thankful for the legacy of John, Rocky, Don, who leave within the city. The big event for the night. The City of Fargo recently had an essay contest for 3rd and 5th graders in the Fargo Public Schools. We asked kids to answer the question, what would you do if you were mayor for a day? With us tonight are the winners of each grade. We have Nathan Ajadam, who just finished 5th grade at Kennedy Elementary, and Alex Zhao, who just completed 3rd grade at Longfellow Elementary. Both students wrote outstanding essays that were judged based on their originality, content, grammar, and structure. I want to give congratulations to Alex and Nathan and to their families who are also with us tonight. Alex, we're going to have you read yours first, and then Nathan will have you read yours. So Alex, if you want to go ahead.
Okay. The City Needs Me for Mayor by Alex Zhao. Have you wondered what would happen and what you would do if you were mayor of our great home called Fargo? Well, I have, and I definitely know that I should be mayor of this terrific town of Fargo. Fargo is the best place to be when you're feeling down. There are so many more good things than bad things. For example, people are so kind and hardworking, they just make you smile. And the places are so nice and exciting. There are so many good parks and restaurants. I should be mayor because I will make the city feel like home for everybody. In other words, I will upgrade the city to really feel like home for even the homeless people. For example, if somebody has an idea that might help a person's life, I will use all my power to make that idea come true. If somebody needs me, I will be there as a friend and a leader. Another reason I should be mayor is because I will listen to people who have ideas to upgrade the city. Even if it's not a very good idea, I will try to come up with something similar to it. I will care for my clients, even if it means getting hurt myself. For example, if they are really hurt, I will do my best to make them feel better. As you can see, I will make a great mayor for the city of Fargo. I will make sure everyone's happy and safe. I will be a friend to all people.
Nathan, you ready?
The city that I would like to talk about today is the city of Fargo. It's a clean, nice city, and I would like to talk about what makes it great, special, and what I would do if I was mayor. So first of all, what makes my city great is that there's almost no crime. What I'm saying is that the city is safe and all of our citizens feel safe. What makes our city great is our infrastructure. We have so many great places to go and things to do. What makes the city special is diverse job opportunities, affordable living, and a good infrastructure, and an excellent education. What I also wanted to say is that in Fargo, housing is 15% cheaper than the USA average, and if I was mayor, there's only a few things that I could do to make the city better. So if I could change some things, I would add a library because we don't have a lot of libraries in Fargo. And I think that libraries are really important for education and would be used by a lot of students in high school and college. Also, I would like to lower taxes for small businesses so that the businesses will grow and give new job opportunities. And another thing that I would add is if I was mayor to ban smoking in Fargo, then it would be safer for everyone because it's dangerous to have smoke in your lungs and smoking causes cancer. And people could also die from secondhand smoking. And lastly, to increase the pay rate for school bus drivers so that more people would drive buses in Fargo. When I go to any other city, it doesn't feel the same as when I'm in Fargo. And I want to thank the mayor of Fargo for doing what he does and making the city what it is. So if you haven't, come visit Fargo.
So Alex and Nathan are going to help me because we have a city commissioner. It's the last meeting tonight. So we want to take this time to acknowledge our sincere appreciation of the public service of outgoing City Commissioner Arlette Preston. Arlette served the City Commission from 1992 to 2000, Board of Education from 2002 to 2006, and now the City Commission from 2020 through the end of this month. Serving in the public realm is not always easy, and we may not always have agreed, but I sincerely appreciate the passion for the causes you held in your heart, Arlette. Your work at the Planning and Development Department on the Growth Plan and your work with the Fargo County Public Health will long be remembered and honored. Public service also results in a sacrifice of your time for your family, and for that we express our appreciation of your husband, Richard, and your daughter, Chelsea. Although you will no longer hold an elected position in Fargo, I have no doubt that you will continue to impact public policy through your volunteer efforts in Fargo metro community. As Margaret Mead stated, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you for standing up for our citizens and advocating for Fargo to continue its work towards becoming a truly welcoming and embracing community. On behalf of the City Commission and all Fargo residents, we sincerely appreciate and commend your 16 years of public service. Oh, you want a picture? Okay. Commissioners, will we come down and take a picture with our light? And our two young mayors.
And then we're gonna have both of you, hold on a sec, we're gonna have both of you come off then. Okay, good. You guys just squeeze together.
Here, let's put you in the middle.
Sorry.
I have to tell you, the fifth graders gave us some other ideas of what to do. People are really very thoughtful, articulate in that age group. I was very surprised, but a lot of stuff about recycling, John. A lot of children wanted to recycle and also things to beautify the city. And it was just amazing that all our young people have so many great ideas for our city. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda adding 2 additional items to the end of the consent agenda to approve the list of alcoholic beverages and live entertainment license until June 30th, 2025, and to approve gaming site authorization for the North Dakota Park Foundation at the Fargo Horse Park? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2024 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 29, adding 2 additional items to the end, alcoholic beverage and live entertainment license and a gaming site authorization for North Dakota Horse Park Foundation at the Fargo Horse Park? Is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. You have my recommendation for appointments following commissions, the Special Assessment Commission and the Planning Commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll
Mayor,
call. Commissioner Strand.
just for the sake of, help me understand the confusion with John Gunkelman's appointment. He had been reappointed for a longer period of time, but then we shortened it. How can you summarize where we landed and why?
Mr. Preston, you want to explain that, please?
Sure. So, and this is a bit of an informal process where I think all of us have talked about 3-term limits. And John had been on for, I think, 10, 12 years, something like that. Same thing with Rocky. Rocky was also on longer. Now, their terms would have been done last summer, but with COVID and everything else, the reappointments got delayed, so they were asked to extend their term for a year. So,
And if wasn't Mr. Gunkelman appointed for till next year?
the communication that we all, and by we, I think staff and the mayor, I didn't have direct communication with him, but at that time, which was a year ago.
But didn't he get a letter of reappointment? I'm not sure. I thought he had been reappointed by a letter from the mayor.
I think the confusion, John, is that when planning went after it, they weren't quite ready to change that. It was a question. They just recently had a resolution, 3 terms only, so they now have discussed it. The confusion is that planning and Arlette did talk to John Gunkelman a year ago, and Rocky, and Don Morgan did tell him about the 1-year service only.
And the last thing I'll say is, I remember one time we had a commissioner step down from one of our boards sometime last year and went out to their front stoop and found a plaque thanking them for service. We need to step up how we acknowledge and conclude terms and how we thank people so that there isn't just any, my sense is there's just confusion out here. And that's why I raised the issue
And that's why it's very important for us to look at commissions and how we do our things. And I think that'll come this fall. So the group will get together and do that and make it clear to the participants. And again, John served very well since 2011, basically, and has done a good job. Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, the one thing I will add is I'm not sure term limits for volunteers on these boards is applicable. To me, term limits for us, I totally understand that. And obviously we follow that, but these people are volunteering their time. And then on top of that, a lot of them have a lot of experience that's valuable to the different boards. And so I think we should revisit this, because I just think term limits is for volunteers. We have a lot of boards where we have a hard time getting people to volunteer. So I just think we need to revisit this, or I would encourage us.
And Commissioner Pepcorn, I agree, because we've had that discussion. John Paulson was on planning forever. He was on a long-term member. We've had some long-term members on many of our boards. And it would be, you've got some boards you've had as to economic development incentive and different people that have, Jim Buss was on for a long time. So it is something I think we should have a fall discussion about and have a rediscussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Mr. Preston.
So I think we had a total of about 10 or 12 applicants for the Planning Commission. So, and we interviewed 7, I think. They were excellent candidates. It was really tough to narrow it down to 3. So it just indicates that there's more individuals out there that are interested in serving in the capacity. And Mayor referred to some past practices where we've had people serving up to 24 years even, which is really long. So trying to come to some kind of term limit, I think, is reasonable. But again, that's something that needs to be done on a policy level, and hopefully that will happen.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kolpak.
Just a couple more comments. Yes, certainly the work we're going to be doing on boards and commissions to streamline the processes, both for how we appoint new members, but also the training that's going to go with them, is very important. It's clear this time around that, again, there was maybe some communication that fell through the cracks a little bit, but hopefully that process will address it. And the last thing I'll say is I do think the changes we've made in interviewing potential candidates with both the mayor and the respective liaison and the staff has really been formalized in a much more integrity approach way. So I just appreciate those improvements today, but we have more work to do.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Tran.
Bear with me. I would recommend that we split this motion and have a vote initially on the planning assessment appointments, and then on the on special assessments, and then on the planning commission. My intention is I'd like to vote no on that last appointment replacing John Gunkelman. So if we can split the vote and have that separated so I could register my vote is all.
Is there a second to split the vote?
Second.
Roll call vote on item A, Special Assessment Commission.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item B, Planning Commission. Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Municipal Airport Annual Report and Request for the 2025 Mill Levy. Jim Capitan and Sean Doberstein. And I have Rick Berg here too, I guess, but,
Mr. Berg
two
wasn't
of you?
able to make it, so
okay.
Mayor Mahoney and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Sean Doberstein, Executive Director of the Municipal Airport Authority. First, Alex and Nathan, those were excellent essays. I don't know if they're still here for that. And also to recognize Commissioner Preston, thank you for your service. We appreciate your time and willingness to participate with the City of Fargo. Commissioners, in your packet, you received a letter from Board Chair Jim Capitan. So in accordance with the Municipal Airport Authority Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Fargo, there were 2 deadlines. The first was April 1st, and we provided to you our financials that were audited by Brady Parts. So you should have been provided those in late March, early April. And then subsequent to that, we provided Mr. Redlinger with the other items that were due, like in April 1st, as they became available in accordance with the MOU. The second date is July 1st, and that's the letter that Mr. Capitan provided to you requesting 2 mills from the city of Fargo and the longstanding partnership that we've had with the property taxpayers of the city of Fargo. The mill levy money goes for airport construction. It's all for infrastructure. It doesn't go to the day-to-day operations of the city, of the airport, I should say. And it's extremely important for your support to continue the 2 mill levy. In your packet also, you had items that were as part of the MOU to talk about the year ending 2023. It was a record boarding year for the airport. We had over 516,000 boarded passengers and approximately that many that came off aircraft. We surpassed the 1 million passenger mark for the first time, which was a huge milestone in the history of the airport that dates back to passenger service back to 1931. We have 2 large generational projects that we've broken ground on at the airport. The terminal expansion, that is evident. We're adding 4 gates to the terminal, additional 80,000 square feet. So we'll have a total of 9 gates once the terminal expansion is completed. In addition to the terminal expansion, there are other projects that are related to that, which are the expansion of the apron, where the aircraft park next to the terminal that will be expanded, the reconstruction of the existing apron that was constructed back in 1985, the installation of a force main pipeline from the airport up to the sewage lagoons north of Fargo, and we've been working with the City of Fargo Water Reclamation Department, Jim Hausauer and his staff. That will transmit de-icing fluid runoff from the airport, the terminal ramp where the aircraft, the commercial aircraft park, and also a cargo apron to pump that fluid up to the lagoons for proper treatment. In all, those projects are $155.9 million. In addition to that, the parking garage is also broken ground. It's approximately a $45 million project. The mayor had mentioned the permit earlier that was issued. In addition to that, and then there's a connecting skyway that's about $6.2 million plus your soft cost of architectural and engineering costs. So it gets up to the $45-46 million mark for those projects there. The parking garage is on top of the $155.9 million. So we're well over the $200 million mark in terms of infrastructure projects that will hopefully all be completed by first quarter of 2027. The terminal expansion itself, the 4-gate area, hopefully will be completed by December of 2025. The contractor will then start on the modifications to the existing terminal, which will hopefully be completed by first quarter of 2027. The parking ramp itself is supposed to take anywhere from 12 to 14 months. So my guess is by September of 2025, we hopefully will have a ribbon cutting for the parking structure at the airport with that. So there's a lot of stuff that's on the plate. Mayor Mahoney did travel with us to Washington, D.C. last fall at the request of Senator Hoeven. We met with the Associate Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, Shanetta Griffin, to show the partnership between the City of Fargo, the Airport Authority, the State of North Dakota, as well as the federal government. What the Federal Aviation Administration is looking for is the partnership, the local buy-in. The mill levy is one of those examples that we show the FAA in terms of local support. We use the mill levy money plus the state money to leverage additional federal dollars. And as it sits right now, we're looking for an additional $50 to $60 million in federal money that's not guaranteed to come to the airport. And then also another $60 million from the state of North Dakota as well. If the federal money does not come through as anticipated, then we'll be looking at issuing revenue bonds with general obligation backing from the city at some point. But it's going to take a couple of years to know all of the federal funding that we're going to receive, just because of the timing of the federal budget that's out there. Earlier this year, with the help of our congressional delegation, we did receive $10 million to what's called an ATP grant, Airport Terminal Project Grant. And this fall, we'll be applying for another grant out of the ATP program, hopefully in the range of $10 to $15 million. And then in 2026, there's another round of those grant funds that will be issued by the FAA. We have 2 things that are against us in terms of federal support for our project. One is we're a small hub airport. Small hub airports do not qualify for discretionary dollars that goes towards the passenger terminal itself. It does qualify for the apron expansion, the apron reconstruction, and that glycol line that I mentioned earlier, but it doesn't qualify for the terminal improvements that we're making. The second thing is that terminal projects are low on the federal priority list of funding opportunities for the federal government. So as we compete with all of the airports in the country for the limited pot of discretionary dollars, terminal projects kind of fall to the bottom, where it's other projects like runway safety improvements or runway reconstruction, taxiways, things out in the airfield that are highly prioritized by the FAA versus terminal projects. So your partnership is greatly appreciated, and your ongoing partnership with the mill levy to demonstrate to the FAA that we do have local support as well as the state would be greatly appreciated. So I open up for any questions that you do have, or if the board should.
Commissioner Strand has stated that sometimes the board might get together with some of the City of Fargo board members as we go through our budget to have a discussion.
That's correct,
I know
yes.
we've been trying to figure out reserve, how much money you need in reserve, and I know you've gotten some opinions from Baker Tilly on that, and I Bailey as well, which I don't think we all know about. So it might be good for us to visit about that a little bit to better understand it, and try to figure a strategy in regards to that.
Mr. Redlinger and I have been in contact. We're looking for sometime in mid-July, I believe, sometime. So whenever Mr. Redlinger finds everyone's calendars are free, we'll get together for a brown bag or whatever it could be to go through.
Any questions, Mr. Oberstein? Mr. Pipcorn?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. So I will support the 2 mills this time, but my long-term view is eventually that has to be tapered to 0. I do think now, obviously, they have a lot of construction projects, but to me, when the parking ramp gets completed and the revenue starts coming in, that mills, that's our property taxpayers are paying that. And so I think, just so you have a heads up, just so you prepare, eventually we need to taper that down. Right now it's at 2 mills and I support that, but I will not be doing that in the future because and what I'm hoping is, obviously, the things that are going on are fantastic, and the balance sheet is going to get stronger, and the airport will too. And so that's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments, John? Mr. Strand?
No, except that missing in our presentation is the absolute excitement we should have for what's going on in our community. This is just huge. To have our airport expand the way it is and become more of the economic engine of the region, and the role the airport plays in that, and the leadership. You know, you have 5 board members that meet every 2 weeks, and they're volunteers. And what a skill set they bring to the table. And Sean, your leadership, and Mr. Capitan as chair, you know, the leadership you all bring. But I just can't contain my enthusiasm for what's coming to Fargo and how quantifiable this will be for our future. I also agree with Commissioner Pepcorn, you know, after we get, right now we're investing and we're partnering. And I would hope that at some point we'll get to the point where the profitability of the parking garage ramp will be compelling enough that we can say thank you to the city for having gotten us there, but we're really, hopefully, going to have a cash flow that would be adequate, that the taxpayers can get some relief. Because of course we have our own budget challenges, but my hat's off to your leadership and your vision and your hard work for the greater good of the region.
Thank you. Yeah, the incremental revenue for the parking structure will be dedicated towards the debt service retirement. We have a $40 million loan from the Bank of North Dakota through the revolving infrastructure loan fund. It's at 2%, 30-year. It's a great thing. We wish we could get more of that money from the state. And then also, the state has classified this as a generational project, something that you do every 20 to 40 years. Terminal expansions, maybe every 20 years. Large runway reconstructions, maybe every 40 years. So Fargo, Grand Forks, and Dickinson have partnered for a $120 million request from the state legislature. $60 million for Fargo, $30 million for Grand Forks, $30 million for Dickinson. And we've met with the governor, the Office of Management and Budget, the Aeronautics Commission staff, and then the legislative leadership, both on the Senate and the House side. And so far, we've had pretty good response to that. So we'll need your partnership to advocate for that as the upcoming legislative session kicks off.
I think John's a visual learner, so Sean, he would have liked to see the new addition and the garage and everything, so maybe we'll do that another time. Any other questions? Thank you for your
Thank you.
report. Jim, you didn't want to say anything?
No, go ahead. I'm leaving that all up to Sean. He's our spokesman when it comes to finances. He knows more about it than all 5 of us.
Thank you. Now we'll go to public hearings. Number 32, continued to 7/8/24. That's a consideration of renewal plan developer agreement for JS2L Partners for tax increment financing district 2024-1, continued to from 6/10/24 regular meeting. We're going to move it to 7/8/24. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston, Pepcorn,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 33, a continuation to 7/22/24, application for Class CV alcoholic beverage license at FAM Incorporated and L Company to be located at 2911 45th Street South. It's continued from the 5/28 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Donna, do you want us to slow down? Are we going too fast for you? You okay? Sorry.
Directed.
Item 34, continuation from 7/22 to 7/22/24, application Class F alcoholic beverage license at Martini Blue at the Grotto, to be located at 3233 45th Street South. Is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Says there a second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Sean Naradnik, public hearing on dangerous building located at 909 4th Street North.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight I'm here to talk about 909 4th Street North. This building is currently uninhabited due to the condition. Again, it is a 1,549 square foot, 2-story wood framed house constructed in 1916, and then a 2-stall garage added sometime after that. We're not sure. The taxes are current on the property and have been paid. The listed damages include large amounts of junk and garbage in the rear yard. The garage roof has a noticeable sag and the rafters show signs of water damage. Large amounts of unpermitted electrical in the house and garage. Entry door of the house and garage were kicked in by somebody. Multiple windows are broken throughout all stories of the home. Missing siding on the house. Deterioration of the weather barrier on the house, the garage trim, soffit, and fascia. Significant rot and deterioration of the porch. And inhabitable rooms in basement are being used for sleeping purposes, inhabitable rooms, sorry. Habitable bedrooms have deadbolts on the doors. Smoke alarms have been removed or dismantled. Noticeable movement in the foundation, exposed foam covering foundation walls. Portions of the kitchen ceiling have been removed. There was drug paraphernalia all over the property. In 2024, to date, there's been 68 calls for service on this property, and the water meter has been tampered with. The water and power have both been shut off. To us, it seems to meet 8 out of the 10 criteria set forth in the ordinance for a dangerous building. The timeline for this one was we were alerted to a possible dangerous building, conducted inspections of the interior and exterior on April 19th. On April 22nd, we posted the structures and sent the notices to the owner. On April 30th, the structures scheduled to be secured, but we had to cancel due to the amount of squatter activity and possible safety factors for our staff. We spoke with the attorney on May 8th. The structure was cleared by PD and we finally got to secure it. We did speak with the attorneys this property is in foreclosure, so we spoke with their attorneys for Williamton Savings Fund Society about the property and the pending foreclosure actions. Attempted to contact the owner through a phone call, but could not reach him. I finally did get in contact with him through email at that time. I made sure he had all the notices and also knew that the building had been secured. We received an email response from the owner on the next day, and that information is in your packet. On May 28th, we received information about squatter activity again. They had broken into one of the doors that had been secured. We had to go out there and clear the building. We cleared it of 3 people, including the owner at that time, and resecured the structure. And we resecured it the next day on the 29th. On June 10th, we requested the public hearing for today. On June 11th, we posted and sent hearing notices out to all interested parties. On June 12th, a report of an attempt to get into the structure again by squatters was reported to us. We took a look at it and they were not able to gain access to the building because of the way we secured it the second time that we've been in there. So they weren't able to actually get through the plywood that we used this time and the way that we secured that particular door. But we did have to remove that plywood because they did some damage and we resecured it on the 13th. And we're here with the public hearing today. Here's some pictures of the structure itself. You can clearly see that the front porch has many issues to it, not just foundation issues, but also the rot issues and things like that. It's hard to see in the middle picture there, but that wall is leaning out at the top. So the foundation is starting to lean out and buckle in at the bottom a little bit. Again, here's just more pictures of some of the rot and decay on the exterior of the property. This particular door on the left is the one they were trying to get into multiple times. We had to secure that one twice. Here's pictures of some of the garbage and things that we saw when we did the initial inspections. More garbage, and if you look at the garage roof with these two pictures, you can noticeably see the sag in the center. And that's posing an issue with the structure itself. Fascia and more garbage and debris all over the property. Here you can see that inside there's some weather deterioration and stuff. This is the inside of the garage. Somebody had been tampering with the electrical service to the house, and there was a lot of just strange wiring and things that were going on with that shouldn't have been going on. Here you can see where the smoke detectors were disabled. Just some of the general pictures of the inside, just showing you kind of what it is. That one there has an outlet on the bottom that has no cover on it. It's old, it's been busted up. This window on the right had been kicked out, and we don't know why. Just there appears to have been some water damage at some time. This is a picture of one of the doors for the bedrooms upstairs. They deadbolted the doors because the owner does not live in there, has not lived in there for quite a while, and was apparently allowing anybody to go in that wanted to be there to feel safe. It looks like they had to put deadbolts on the doors. Here's some more wiring and stuff that is definitely not up to code. Just more general rot and depreciation of the structure, the electrical, just the general nature of the structure was very dirty. There's a lot of things in there. It was difficult to move around. So our recommendation is on the screen, and we would recommend that the city designate this a dangerous building, direct the city attorney to prepare findings of fact in this matter, order its removal on August 23rd, 2024. Please direct the appropriate staff to secure the removal of the building should the owner fail to do so. Again, this is a property that is in foreclosure. I do believe a representative from the bank is online right now. It's either Zach Nesbitt or Tyler Weirick. I'm not sure which. They weren't sure who was going to be able to make it. So with that, we close our presentation and stand for questions.
Is there anyone present who wishes to address the City Commission regarding this dangerous building?
Well, yes, this is Tyler Ware. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. I was having some difficulty getting in. I'm the attorney that represents the foreclosing party. It's Wilmington Safety Fund Society in this matter. Just so the council is aware of where the current matter stands. Again, yes, we are most definitely in a foreclosure action. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We've got a judgment. We're in the sale proceedings, but until such point as we've gotten some sort of title to the property, we don't have any authority to access the property to be able to make any changes necessary to hopefully bring this into compliance, or even to get in there and get some idea of what we would need to do to have to come into compliance. Granted, my client is simply a mortgage holder, which is not a fee interest in the property and doesn't give them full authority to access the property. And so while we understand that the removal is there are some issues here clearly based on the presentation. We would request some additional time to let us finish the foreclosure so that we can address this and see if there's anything we can do to save the building essentially, and to save if it would be worth going in and fixing the building to save any sort of value that might be there for my client.
From the city inspection standpoint, we would definitely ask if there could be an extension on this one if the bank does take it over and decide to rehab it, or what they decide to do with it. We would come forth with an extension request if they wanted to. So.
And how long would that extension be requested? 60 days?
I don't know. We'd have to see what extent they decide to either repair or remove the structure. If they decide to repair it and they have a timeline, they have to get their contractors and stuff lined up and get things done. We don't know what their timeline would be. We would have them request the extension from us, including a timeline, and
Somebody has a cell phone that keeps going off. Can we please turn it off, please? Go ahead, John.
we would ask them for a timeline, telling us how long of an extension they would need, and then we would present it to commission.
From the correspondence in this packet, the owner talked to you May 8th. Nothing's moved since May 8th.
No, he has indicated to us that the property has been sold, but we have received no information about that, about any kind of sales. Nobody's contacted us with regards to the building. We did allow him to go in and get some personal effects at one point, so we unsecured it, allowed him in, and he did have 2 interested buyers there at that point. We did inform them that if they were going into the structure, that it was on their own to do it. We weren't providing any safety or anything like that, and if they were injured on the property, this was not going to be anything that the city would be liable for.
So I'm not clear who's on phone. What's your name?
It was Tyler Weirk. He's the attorney.
Tyler.
Yeah.
Would a
I'm the
six,
attorney.
would a 60-day extension give you time to get done what you need done?
I was just checking that as we were talking there. Looks like we are, see, notice of sales out for publication. That actually might, it'll be kind of close. Let me just double check our sale date here. Hold on just one moment.
Mr. Chair, can I
Just
ask a
pulling that
question?
up.
Go ahead, Commissioner Pepcorn.
So if we took this motion and approved that, you could still work with them.
Yes.
So
They have 60 days from today to secure either the removal of the property or ask for an extension.
So we have that automatically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have done it in the past, so.
Is there anybody else wish to
And
speak?
if I may,
Go ahead.
sorry about that. We are currently set for sale on the 24th of July of 2024. So we are exactly a month out.
Okay, and yeah, they have till August 23rd to ask for an extension, so
Very good.
it's within the time frame.
Is there anybody else wish to speak to this building? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I've been here a few years now, and I'm seeing these timelines compress. You know, when you first arrived and before you were here, we had a backlog and a quagmire of inspections and buildings at risk and to the public. And as I'm seeing this, from April 19th, you started your initial inspection, and 2 months later, we're at the city commission.
Yes.
You know, this is a signal to the public, how we're expediting these actions for the general safety of the public. So, good work.
I appreciate the kind comments, but I also have to reach out to other departments that have been helping us with these. They've helped us tighten up the timelines. Nancy's been great about it, so has Alyssa, as well as the PD. They've been working with us on all these things very, very, very well, so.
Mr. Chair, can I add one more
Commissioner
thing?
Pepcorn.
But the other thing is, if they start taking action, then Sean can come back to us and ask for more time. Isn't that correct, Sean?
Yeah.
So this isn't like we're saying this has to all be done by then, but at least I would say this puts more pressure on them. Would you say that's correct, Sean?
Yes, I would say that's correct, and that's why we try and tighten up the timeline, is to put pressure on, just to basically let them know that action needs to be taken on this sooner than later. Otherwise, we sit on them for years.
Mr. Chairman, if
Commissioner Preston?
Yeah, and I think from the neighborhood perspective, they're probably very appreciative of this quick time frame and not extending it unless we absolutely have to. So, yeah, I agree.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 36, hearing on a dangerous building located at 1449 4th Street South. John Rodnick as well.
Hi, this one is for 1449 4th Avenue South, and it's going to be a bit of a unique one because we're actually not going to recommend tearing it down. We're recommending repair on this one because it's in a state that's bad and people shouldn't be living in it, but it's not unsafe. So it consists of a 1,282 square foot single-story home with wood frame structure. It was built in 1919, and it was current up until the 2023 taxes have not been paid on it. The list of damages are exterior junk. There's an attic window missing. North entry door was damaged and will not seal or operate as designed, and that has been fixed. Exterior weather barrier around the porch will be our wall opening is damaged and the entry door is damaged. Dining and bedroom ceilings have been removed without a permit. Kitchen flooring has been removed, leaving the raw plywood. Unpermitted electrical work in the basement and other places within the structure. Multiple areas of exposed wiring on dismantled fixtures and open junction boxes. Holes and peeling paint in the interior walls. There's a plastic dryer vent, which is not allowed in the basement. Exposed areas of the foundation have some large cracks, but they seem to be more superficial and are not causing movement within the structure at this point. And damage to the original north entry where SWAT was apparently in for an action. Water and power have been turned off since 2023, and it appears to meet 5 of the 10 dangerous building criteria. Our timeline on this one was on 8/18. 23, we were notified of a possible dangerous building. What it was, we were receiving complaints about this one because they were using a generator as their electrical power. So we had to go out there and take a look at it. They had been tampering with the electrical meter, trying to get free electricity, and the electrical meter had been removed, and they didn't know how to achieve that. On 11/30, no progress had been made on the structure after we posted it as a substandard structure at that point, but it is a dangerous building. It's the same thing, it's just we posted it as a little bit softer of a designation at that point. We reposted it as a substandard building and ordered the people out because they were not doing any movement, and it was to the point where they should not have been living in it. From 11/2023 to 2/24, we noticed the property was up for sale, so we did record the notices against the deed so that anybody who was purchasing the property knew what they were getting into. On 2/2/24, the unsafe notice structure was recorded. On 5/29, there was an amended summons received from a foreclosure action on the property, which the city attorneys did answer. On 6/10, our request for the dangerous building hearing was done, and here we are at the dangerous building at commission today. Here's some pictures of the structure. As you can see, it's not in such a state that it needs to be tore down, but there are deficiencies that need to be fixed, and if they're not fixed, we would in the future possibly be looking at recommending tear down for this structure as well. Here's the electrical meter they were tampering with. The cover was missing and they were doing something out there. We did receive a video from a neighbor showing somebody out there tampering with it, so we do know for sure it was tampered with. There's just garbage and debris all over the backyard. This is the door that was unsecured. That is the door that was not sealing properly, but they did have a different door put on, and I do believe it was fixed. There's the missing attic window. Here's some examples of just what the inside looks like. Here's the example of where the ceiling was removed with nothing that can get to be dangerous if there's exposed wiring. The stairs don't have proper handrails on them. There's the floor in the kitchen where they don't have any floor covering or anything, so that wood is exposed to any water or any type of anything that happens in a normal kitchen. Here's some of the electrical wiring that's going on. It could be hazardous to people, and these are some of the reasons why we didn't want anybody in there, because nobody was doing anything with this. Again, just kind of the state of the building. Again, somebody had been tampering with the electrical meter. And the recommendation to this one is to designate this a dangerous building, direct the city attorney to prepare findings of fact on this matter and order it repaired with permits to be obtained no later than September 23rd, 24, with a project completion date no later than December 20th of 24.
Is there any president wish to speak to this building?
Yes, this is Tyler Wyrick. I also represent the lender in this matter. It's a U.S. bank. And this one is also in the midst of a foreclosure proceeding. As mentioned, there's been an amended summons and complaints package that was submitted to the court that is out for service right now. In terms of a timeline, we're probably 2 months out before a foreclosure sale on this one, just so that the commission is aware kind of where we stand on that. But certainly, as soon as we can get, whether this goes to a bank owner, whether this goes to third party, we can figure out where to go once we get that that foreclosure taken care of.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this building? Now I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Preston?
So Sean, this one's being foreclosed on, and he indicated, what was the date that?
I think he indicated about 60 days from now they should be able to take possession of the property. September 23rd is 91 days from now.
It seems like this particular building doesn't have as many structural issues.
Yes.
So it's salvageable. I guess my question is, December 20th, is that going to give them enough time to try to salvage it?
Again, we're basically looking for,
Again,
Just
can
to
we
have-
have the cell phone off, please? Just turn your cell phones off, then we won't have this disruption.
again, we're just looking for a timeline to act if nothing happens with the property. So again, these timelines can be adjusted when we come back to commission and ask for extensions if
Okay.
need be.
All right.
So
It would be great if this one could be saved, probably. It would be-
that's what we're
Mr. Pipcorn?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the other thing is we have lots of programs to help homes that need this kind of thing. So if that's possible, once this is resolved with the foreclosure and things, to make sure that the new homeowners are aware of, we have lots of programs like that. So anyway, and I know that's a little bit out of your wheelhouse, Sean, but if somebody from the city could contact them, I think it's planning probably that, but anyway, I think that'd be good, because like you said, this is, we definitely don't want to knock down houses, but to make it more efficient and all those things, that'd be good. Thank you. Sorry for rambling on, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that's fine. If we have programs that help, let's go ahead. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Colpack,
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye. Public hearing, Circle in Place, second edition. Approval recommended by Planning Commission 6/4/24. Zoning change from agriculture, general commercial to multi-dwelling residential with conditional overlay, single dwelling residential and SR5. First reading, the rezoning ordinance and the plat of the Circle in Place, second edition. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress with the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting the next three items. These items include ordinances prepared by the City Attorney's Office. Item number 37, as the Mayor has stated, is Selkirk Place Second Edition, located down here in South Fargo. This is 64th Avenue, I-29. This area developed here is Selkirk Place First Edition. Our new fire station is right here. Here's a close-up of this area. These photos show the site here, which is pretty much an open field here. You're looking, well, the mowed line isn't, where the grass is mowed isn't as clear in this as it was earlier, but this is about where the existing subdivision ends, and then this will be the new subdivision. This is a little piece of the new fire station over here. And again, just facing south from 66th, showing the open field there. The current zoning, as you see, is general commercial and agricultural. This area was zoned general commercial some years ago. It was never developed as general commercial. Plat proposes 48 lots. As you see, a number of single-family lots here, as well as two larger lots. The zoning would look like this. These are our SR4, again, our detached single-family dwelling. The SR5 here is proposed by the applicant to be developed with townhomes. And then the MR3, which would be the multi-dwelling zone, would be multi-dwelling buildings. And we've added a conditional overlay to this, a little different than some of the other ones we do here. It mainly regulates the location and size of accessory buildings, in this case, mainly apartment garages. And then there's also a short section here about pedestrian connectivity. Again, as the building is developed, we're surrounded by two streets here, streets on really 3 of the 5 sides of the project, so want to make sure we have pedestrian connectivity from the buildings to the public sidewalk. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on your screen. The applicant's representative, John Eunice of Eagle Ridge Development, is with us tonight and may wish to address the commission. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present wishes to speak to zoning? Anyone wishing to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I maybe a few of us have had a call from a resident down in that neighborhood, and the concern that was expressed to me that got my attention as much as anything was walkability, connectivity. Like, is there even, as they're eroding and losing the ability to even have like a grocery store located down there with the erosion of commercials, general commercial space? Could you address that just in a balcony view,
Well,
please, Donald?
I'll do the best I can, sir. As you see, this area is still all zoned general commercial, so 33rd Street will continue down here. And so this area between there and the interstate, I believe, is intended to be, remain a general commercial development. And then this in here, I actually don't know what the applicant's plans are. Perhaps Mr. Yunus could address your question for a moment, Mr. Strand, if that's appropriate.
Good evening, Commission. John Eunice with Eagle Ridge. To answer your question, we have we control the property from this current addition all the way down to 76th. And there's plans for commercial property all the way along the interstate and then again down along 76th Avenue. So as the area develops more and traffic allows for it, there are locations that would fit grocery stores and other commercial businesses.
Thank you. And just a typographical correction this citizen made too. This location isn't serviced by Bennett Elementary, but rather Centennial.
Oh, is it, sir? Okay, thank you for that correction, sir.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. 38, Rocking Horse Farm, 7th edition. Approval recommended by Planning Commission 5724. Zoning change from agriculture to limited commercial with a conditional overlay. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and plat of the Rocking Horse Farm, 7th edition. Don LaCrust to explain.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rocking Horse Farm 7th Edition is located here along 52nd Avenue. Here's Veterans Boulevard. It is an undeveloped property, part of this larger undeveloped property that's part of the Rocking Horse Farms subdivision, which has slowly been developing over the years. These photos show the site. Here's an existing dig. This is 52nd Avenue in the background. This is an existing daycare. This is where 61st Street dead ends effectively. And then this is looking at the other direction, so the daycare is right behind us here, looking along 51st here. And that's 52nd Avenue and some of the commercial and industrial development on the other side of 52nd Avenue. The zoning here is agricultural, and the proposed zoning is limited commercial with a conditional overlay. The plat, very simply, divides this into 2 lots for commercial development. There is an existing easement here that was originally provided for the continuation of 61st Street. That is not ever going to connect down to 52nd, and the applicant is intending to vacate this easement in the future. They didn't do it on this plat, but they intended to do it in the future. There is a conditional overlay that is included in your packet there that is pretty much our standard conditional overlay that we use along arterial roadways. It restricts some uses and includes building standards and site requirements for properties along arterial roadways. The applicant, Mike Love of Houston Engineering, is with us this evening and may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to discuss this rezoning? Is there anyone who wants to present on this rezoning? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. Chase Roberts addition approval recommended by Planning Commission on 6/4/24, zoning change to repeal and reestablish conditional overlay. First reading of rezoning ordinance. Don LaCrest to explain as well. Item 39.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Item 39 is located at 901 9th Street South, which is on the corner of 9th and 9th here. This was originally a house of worship when it was built. It has more recently been a photography studio. It is now not in business at this time. It was also a dance studio at one time, I believe. When it was created to be the photo studio, the zoning was neighborhood commercial, and there was a conditional overlay on it, which restricted it to only being a photo studio. The current owner wishes to sell the building. He's not in the photo business anymore. He wishes to sell the building, and there was some discussion during the review process of whether the conditional overlay should be modified or retained. We did have a public meeting on May 23rd, as Mr. Mormon, the case planner, notes in a staff report. That and further discussion indicated that conditional overlay to be so restrictive was not necessary, particularly. And so the actual entitlement you'll be voting on here is just to remove that conditional overlay. That we are not going to propose to reestablish it. At the time we advertised it, we thought we might be reestablishing it, but we're just removing it now. Also, there was a conditional use permit that was approved at the Planning Commission June 4th. Your commission does not take action on conditional use permits. Site looks like this. So this is 9th Street out here. This is showing where the parking will be. This is off the alley here. And there's proposed to be 4 parking spaces in here. And there are none on the site now, so that's a step up there to have those 4. And then this is just facing the front of it. This is the handicapped accessibility ramp here for this facility. And the zoning here, again, is neighborhood commercial, and proposed to maintain the neighborhood commercial and just remove the conditional overlay. The property owner and applicant, Brian Walker, is with us tonight. May wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on your screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to address the commission on this zoning? Anyone planning to speak to it? If not, I close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. Donald, I'm wondering, is that down the road, somebody wants to turn this into a parking lot, what will the answer be?
I don't believe commercial parking is allowed in the neighborhood commercial zone. I'd have to verify that, but I think that probably is not allowed, sir.
So it wouldn't be allowed, most likely.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you.
I'm not looking at my zoning ordinance, but
Because that neighborhood's had some parking lots surface in middles of blocks and ends of, in odd places.
yes. Well, hopefully the idea that it'll be commercial will, people, engage in that idea of having that neighborhood commercial and keep it vibrant.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston, Colpack,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item 40,
you,
appeal of
Commissioners.
the Board of Adjustment decision on a variance request at 97 23rd Avenue North to allow the overhead structure to encroach in the required front setback, single-dwelling residential zoning district as outlined in Fargo Municipal Code, denied by the Board of Adjustment on 5/28. Nicole Crutchfield, not Nicole Crutchfield,
Good evening. I'm Kim Satrowski with the Planning
Kim.
Department.
sorry.
The public hearing for consideration today is an appeal of a Board of Adjustment decision. The City Commission is to consider the appeal decision as a new matter at public hearing and act to approve or deny the original application. A favorable vote of 3/4 or 4 members is required to approve the variance. A little history, a variance application was submitted April 17th. The Board of Adjustment considered the application and with a vote of 4-1, denied the variance request. The applicant submitted an appeal of the Board of Adjustment decision on May 31st, and notice was provided as required for both application. One inquiry was received. The subject property is at 97 23rd Avenue North, which is between Elm Street and 2nd Street on 23rd Avenue North in the Northport neighborhood. The request is to allow an overhead structure to encroach in the required front setback. The Land Development Code outlines setbacks refer to an unobstructed area from the ground to the sky, to include some exceptions, including uncovered porches, uncovered steps, uncovered patio decks, and uncovered balconies. And all of those are able to extend up to 10 feet into that required setback. So you can see at this property, there is an uncovered deck that does exist right now. The LDC also outlines a front setback averaging. So in older neighborhoods that might have been built out before the current LDC was established, to look at other houses in that block area to make an adjustment or average out that setback. And as you can see, all of the houses along 23rd Avenue are all set back at that same required setbacks distance. The applicant's proposal is to encroach into that front setback to cover her existing deck. The original proposal was to extend the roof line, and then mid-process, she submitted an amendment for this gazebo that she found, both of which are covered structures, so still apply that it's a covered structure in the front setback. The criteria for variances are outlined in the Land Development Code, and you need to be able to satisfy all the criteria, is how the LDC outlines. And so staff have found that 2 criteria are not satisfied, so they recommend denial. The recommended motion is on your screen and in your packet. That concludes staff's presentation. The
Can you
applicant
just
is here
show us on the map where that's supposed to go? Is it supposed to go in front of the house or behind the house?
in front of the house, so it would be over the existing deck. So you can see kind of a rounded area
Oh, okay.
right here, so somewhere in this area. And the applicant is here if you have any questions.
Does the applicant want to address the commission? Yes, I do. Please come forward to the podium and address the commission.
Hi, my name is Julie Satoff, and I do reside at 97 23rd Avenue North. I've been there for about almost 13 years now, and I have a deck that has not been able to been used in the summer at all. The temperature gets so ungodly hot. It faces the south, and I have a terminally ill daughter who is now living in Duluth, who would like to come and spend her last months with me in Fargo. She is wheelchair bound, and I do a lot of volunteer work, and I'm out of the house a lot. And one of the things that we discussed was she would be able to get out on the front deck if I could put something over it. I've tried umbrellas. I have tried an awning. The awning, I was told, can only come out 3 feet. So that it will stay with the setback. And so that didn't work, and we put up canopy tents with our wind, that kind of, that tends to like blow over. Doesn't seem to matter how much weight I put on. When that wind picks up underneath, they're gone. I've had, my other big tent had 40-pound weights on each pole, which were 2, 4, 6 poles. I came home to find it over my house. So my concern is this structure would be screwed into the deck, therefore it won't be taking off on me in the strong winds that we have. And it would stay right there, and I don't have to be concerned about my house, my neighbor's house. I've talked with many of my neighbors, and they think it's a great idea. And also, I would like to submit something, if I can, to the board. And I apologize, I didn't make copies for everybody. But I think this is
There's a
really,
way in which you can show it to us. Greg will help you. There's a way in which we can see it if you just put it on a side thing over to the side.
oh, okay. Oh, cool. All of them? One at a time? Oh, okay. Sure. Should I turn it? Okay, so it has the times, can you hear me? Has the time stamped on there. I asked Alexa, what is the temperature out right now? 78 degrees. So I put my thermometer that I go by on my deck out, and immediately it went to 110. And that was at 12:40. 12:41, it's up to 120. It's too hot for pets, too hot for feet. You can't touch my front door. It is so hot. And after I put it in the shade then, 243, right in the shade, it pops down. Not, 120 is the hottest my thermometer goes, so I'm guessing it was much hotter. We fried an egg on that deck in a matter of 30 seconds. And so, my deck is not used in the summer. I hold veteran groups, and we like to be out front. We barbecue, and we like to, we encourage, my neighbors come, and we visit a lot. I do a lot of entertaining out on the front, and we've never been able to use my deck. So what I'm hoping is that you guys will okay this structure to go up as a permanent structure and have overhead for a couple of reasons, but the main reason is to bring my daughter home. And she can go outside. And so we talked about ramps and all this stuff, and can you put it somewhere else? And you can't really see the way my house is built, but the front door comes out towards the south. My back door goes into the garage, down steps, and then out, and then you'd have to go all the way in the back. So to put a ramp in there just isn't feasible, to try and put something in the back and have her back there when I'm not around.
Questions of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I
Mr.
have
Preston.
a question for staff. Have you heard anything from neighbors?
I have not. I had one inquiry come and they were just curious about the project.
And is there any precedent issues here if we would agree to allow this?
The rule would stay the rule, but I don't know if it could be likely that if people know that a variance would be granted, that would be what they would pursue future forward too.
It's case by case though, right? We don't set a precedent. We know the policy, and it's just a case of this front area being utilized. And the Board of Adjustment voted it down just because it didn't follow policy. Would that be correct?
It didn't meet the criteria, right?
Okay. Mr. Strand.
Thank you. Kim, I'm just curious if in LDCs or zoning issues what accommodations are there for ADA accessibility requests, if this maybe were one?
That would be outside of my purview. I think there are some programs that we have, and I think Sean might have some other perspectives on exactly what the inspections department would do to look at that. But there are lots of options that a structure could be placed in the backyard and some other areas. But like you saw on that one illustration, the setback is consistent with all of the neighbors.
And that would be my concern, is if it's an ADA issue, we try to accommodate a family, even if it's temporary, but it'd have to be really for that. And I'm not sure we do, but that would, in my opinion, be something worth vetting. ADA requests are in a category sometimes all of their own. If that's what you're asking, and as I'm hearing you'd like to accommodate a member of your family, what's your thoughts on if somebody wants accessibility or ADA accommodations for a family member?
There, within the building codes and stuff, there are ADA accommodations. There are building codes we do follow for this. Many times it's like placing a ramp on the front of building and stuff like that. Sometimes they do encroach, and we have granted variances for things like that, I do believe, in the past. None come to mind, but I'm pretty sure we probably have. But for covered structures and things like that, there's nothing in the ADA or anything like that that allows for accessibility in that manner. It's more to get to places and get into places and utilize places, not to accommodate structures outside that are not applicable to our codes. They are not going to meet other portions of the codes, so there's no ADA requirements for that. In commercial structures, residential structures, mostly residential structures, there's not a lot of ADA requirements. It's more of a case-by-case basis, and once again, we'd look at a variance if they needed to put a ramp on the front if somebody was in a wheelchair or something like that. But most of the time, it's going to be that person renovating their own home to accommodate what their needs.
Kim, it says they could have a pergola or a gazebo. What's the difference?
It's a roof. The pergola has more of a slatted sun shading, and then the gazebo would be more of a solid roof. But the request is more to allow the flexibility. So to have a covered structure, which would allow for either one. Like I said, when she initially came in, she had a different application that would extend the roof of her house, which would be a covered structure. And then mid-process, she decided to go a different route for the gazebo that you see in your packet. So it's a variance for an overhead structure. But both of those different examples are what has been considered throughout the process as she considers her different projects.
So the gazebo has not been, she hasn't brought that forward. If she'd brought that forward, she'd be able to do that without appeal?
The request is for an overhead structure, and an overhead structure could be either or a pergola or a gazebo. Both are considered overhead structures, and that is what the variance is for. Thank you.
I guess just to clarify a little bit, pergola gazebo, typically those are more standalone structures. You can attach them to the house in a certain way, but they are not attached as a roof would be attached to a structure. So if you have the overhang for the roof, it's part of the roof line, it's got shingles on it and things like that. A pergola may have a ledger, what's called a ledger board, attached to the exterior of the structure for support, but that ledger board can be removed and the pergola can go without any major construction or anything like that. Same with the gazebo. Usually we see those as a standalone structure in the middle of a yard. You know, if you think the round gazebos and stuff kind of look like a silo, that's more of a gazebo style thing. Not that they can't be other.
So that could be an option.
These would be considered roof structures, so they would not meet the criteria for the setbacks in the front of the house. They're not gonna, the encroachments and stuff are for anything that's uncovered. A pergola or a gazebo is considered a covered structure. So it does go towards like your lot count, your lot, can't remember what it's called right now. Your lot coverage for your house. So you only have a certain amount of the lot that you can actually use that is not open green space type of thing. This would go towards that lot coverage percentage.
I'm just trying to figure out what's her alternative.
Alternative wise, from our standpoint, would be putting some type of structure in the backyard, making that accessible and stuff, possibly changing the front to a ramp where they can access the building and then go through and access the structures in the backyard.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Preston?
could you explain to me, and this is reaching back, but the purpose for not allowing an overhead structure in the area that's considered setback? What's the rationale here?
I guess from an inspection standpoint, it's fire safety. Same reason why we have setbacks on the sides of the houses, to keep them farther apart from, so if a fire event happens in one, it doesn't spread to another. The front setbacks, as I understand them, are put in place to allow the fire department room to work. That if they're not getting up close to a house and they have a structure like this, which is not as sound in a fire as a roof structure on a house, and they don't, then they have to worry about collapse there, they have to worry about spread coming out, things like that.
Is fire here tonight? No?
Because if I could add a little bit.
You want to comment on that? Is it a fire safety issue?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Yes, it is a fire safety issue, having distance, the exposure between structures. A pergola in the front yard can be an issue for fire safety concerns. I don't know that fire code prohibits it, but I haven't examined it.
So it gets in the way when you're trying to put out a fire, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Commissioner Preston?
So I can think of a couple of homes where there is a pergola, but the home is set back further. So I'm still not quite understanding the rationale behind this. I know it's been probably in the LDC and in the codes for a long time, but it just isn't making a whole lot of sense to me.
Go ahead, what did you want?
I wanted to say, as far as fire safety and such, it is going to be put, it's a 6x12. The first one that I had designed was going over the deck and would have posts in the yard and such, which I could see as a fire hazard. I switched over to a 6x12, so it'll be on an existing deck. Therefore, the deck's already there, so it's just a matter of you guys okaying me putting a roof on a gazebo up there.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. My thinking is if this becomes an ADA issue, I'd like to know what we could do to accommodate a family with an ADA need. And if that's the case, it maybe be a temporary thing, or as soon as that need were not being addressed or the family member were not there, you're back to removing the pergola. Is that an option?
That is an option.
You know, so my thoughts are, I don't know that we all need to decide this tonight. My thoughts are if we could send this back to, see if there's a happy meeting ground where we can accommodate their family member, see if the neighbors object or not. You know, the neighbors may say, hey, we don't care if that's going to help your family have a better lifestyle. You know, maybe that's okay. But maybe the neighbors are going, I don't know. But my request would be to see if there's a way to accommodate their needs on, if nothing else, temporary basis for ADA issues. If we verify that's what it's used for, it will be used for, and as long as it's used for that.
I can call my daughter right now.
But that's just my thinking. And
Can I say something about the ramp? If there was a ramp, it would have to go across my driveway to get her to the backyard.
Nicole, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to bring us back to the criteria. So this is in the Land Development Code. It is a code standard. If you want to overturn staff and Board of Adjustment, by all means, that's your prerogative. And these are the criteria legally that we use to standardize this. So the ADA and other aspects might be something you want to consider as part of criteria A, something that's unique to the inhabitants. That's a stretch, but that's something that could be considered. Or if you think this is the strict application, item C is where we also felt was not meeting the code. But again, that's your prerogative. The budding property owners, the neighbors have been notified that it was part of a public hearing process. And so I know it puts the commission in a hard spot to overturn a variant or to create a variance, but that's how the position and the process is designed to do. It does require a supermajority as part of that, but that's what the process is designed to do.
Mr. Pepcorn.
So just real quick, Mr. Chair, this is a variance, so this is not setting a precedent for everybody. So this is a special, just like Commissioner Strand was talking about, there's lots of special extenuating circumstances. And so I don't think we need to fear approving this, having this be something that will extend to everybody on the block or something like that. So I will support it. Actually, I'll make the motion if that's okay, Mr. Chair, because I think this is a special reason and it's not going to set a precedent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second, and a comment.
Commissioner Kolpak.
I agree. I mean, the variance, we have variances in this process for a reason. This seems like an exception to me. Certainly working with the homeowner to make sure all other criteria are met as this is installed, if we approve this variance, but I certainly support this variance as well.
Any other discussion?
could you repeat the motion, please? Just so I'm clear on what your exact motion was, please.
If you can go back one right there, it says, I would just say, instead of denying the variance, to approve the variance, that's basically it, that I make the motion to approve this variance.
And I assume it's to the new criteria she laid out here tonight, the 6 by 12.
Correct.
Yes.
And I would clarify for ADA accommodation. At least that's our intention, I think.
No, I agree, but I don't know if I would add that in there,
Okay,
John.
I hear you.
'Cause
Okay.
I do agree. And I'll give you an example. So we have a variance. My son is in a wheelchair. So on Becker County, we have a variance. But as long as he's there, we have this variance for a sidewalk to our dock at our lake. If he was not there, we would have to remove it. So I'm living proof that it has. And I will say, I asked Diana to testify because she has a gazebo. And so I asked for expert testimony, but she declined. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 6:29, or 6:30, I'm sorry. Call back in session. Commissioner Kolpak will be coming back to the dais. Flood project update. Recommendation to adopt the resolution of necessity to acquire 1502 and 1514 South River Road South, project FM 15J. Nathan Burbaum to explain.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. First, it's been probably a little over a year since I was last in front of you, given the update on progress of the in-town flood project. So before we speak to the resolutions, I thought I'd give a quick update of what we've accomplished over the last year. So first, this is a map that you have seen quite frequently over the years. As a refresher, any colored line you see on the map on the right-hand side is where we have been since 2009 constructing the levee or flood wall. So in total, all those lines total up to a little over 27.5 miles of flood walls and levees built since, over the past 15 years. So in order to be able to construct those levees and flood walls, we've acquired exactly 259 properties, as well as over 120 private property easements. As a refresher, though, all these levees are being built to the appropriate elevations plus appropriate freeboard to make sure that we can safely pass the planned 37-foot flows on 100-year flood event once the diversion is in operation. So what have we completed in the last year? Well, we completed the first phase of Woodcrest, which is up north of the VA hospital. We built the levees behind those homes up there, as well as plugged a gap in the levee along Hackberry Drive, where we recently acquired a home there. This summer, we are continuing the construction of Woodcrest with phase 2. That is the last phase of that project and consists of relocating some storm sewer, as well as completing a repair to the flood wall along South University Drive, just north of 52nd Avenue South. And then the last 2 levee projects that we have in town to be in a situation where we can accommodate those 37-foot flows through the city once the diversion is placed is Harwood Drive. So that in your commission packet, the letter there, I indicated 635 Harwood Drive is one home that we are still working on acquiring. Back in 2017, this commission approved a resolution necessity to acquire that home as well. Since then, we've been continuing to work with that property owner. Unfortunately, have not quite reached an agreement on purchase price for that home as well. So no action needed from the commission tonight on that one, but we just want to make you aware that we are probably by the end of the summer going to start the necessary legal action if we aren't able to acquire that home or come to agreement on price with that property owner. Just for your awareness, though, we will continue to negotiate with that property owner. Our goal is to be able to acquire that home without having to take those legal actions, but we just want to make you aware that we do intend, if needed, to act on that resolution necessity from a few years ago. And then the last one, I'll talk to a little bit more detail here as we get further into the presentation, but that is in the Belmont neighborhood over by the water treatment plant. So in addition to the levees and flood walls, we've also been reconstructing a lot of storm sewer lift stations. So we've actually reconstructed, there it goes, 7, oops, now the check marks are 7 completed storm sewer lift stations that we completed since 2018. This summer, we have another 5 under construction, as well as tentatively plan to start another 3 next summer. But overall, we're still on track to have all the lift stations on this map completed by the end of 2027, which was part of the goal as part of the Plan B development that was developed with the Diversion Authority.
And at one time with the diversion, sorry, you're going to delay those till a much later date. So this has moved everything up to be done by 27?
That's still, well, originally they were 26, so we delayed them 1 year, but still, we believe that's 27 is still a very achievable goal, but we are closely watching the contractor's capacity to make sure that the costs of the project still remain where they should. And if the contractor's capacity is at such a level that we think the prices would be higher as us keep on pushing forward, we will hold off on some of these projects.
And then when you do that on I-29, you're putting in 2 pump stations each side of the road. Are those just, you're changing the pumps and the size, or what is it? Because you had older ones, you're just changing everything?
Yep. So the lift stations that we are reconstructing have reached the end of their useful design life, as well as they only have 1 pump within them. So our standard today is to make sure that there's 2 stormwater pumps. So if one would fail during a flood event, that we still have the appropriate pumping capacity there to make sure that we can get any snow melt or rainfall that's falling within the protected area into those river systems and not flooding ourselves out from within.
And in 2009, didn't we have one pump failure in one of our pumps that we had to externally pump? Or came close?
2009, we had a few different issues that we worked through. Yep, that Public Works still got us through that event.
So that's why you want two? from now on.
Correct.
Okay, sorry.
So just a few pictures of the projects from last year. First one is Woodcrest Phase 1. So you can see the levee that we constructed behind those homes. The VA would be just off the top end of the screen, as well as one of the lift stations that was reconstructed. Homes used to exist through here. So that project is now complete, minus this summer's storm sewer work that's out in front of the homes. Here is Hackberry Drive. So this photo was taken last fall in the middle of the construction of that levee. So that gap is now filled. And if you were to drive by that today, the grass is coming in very well. So you wouldn't even hardly notice that activity from last October. And then highlighting a little bit of the storm sewer lift stations. So this is 42nd Street, 40th Avenue South will just be on the left-hand side. These are two of those lift stations that we reconstructed last year. Want to call out your attention to this area right here because I have next couple slides showing some active construction of this. So here we are looking north. Drain 27 is right here, so looking north. Here is one of those lift stations being constructed. This is only about half of that structure. There would have been another wall pour on top of it. I want to call out the attention though that just the size of our storm sewer, due to our flat topography, we have to have very large storm sewer to handle all the runoff within the city. So that's a normal size excavator down there. Here's another picture of the left-hand side. So this is a 84-inch storm sewer pipe or 7-foot diameter. So once that pipe would have been set in the ground, that construction worker could have walked right down the middle of the pipe without even having to duck his head. So rather large pipe. This is a structure that's in the middle of construction. Each of these is a pump bay. So if you were to look at today, now we have a pump in each one of these bays. And when the floodwaters are high enough, the gates here would be closed to prevent those floodwaters from backing up into the city. And any rainfall or snowmelt would then be pumped back into those floodwaters or the river. So now moving into the Belmont Flood Risk Management Project. So here's a photo from the 2009 flood. Here is South River Road. Along here you can see the sandbag line of protection between the homes and river. Of course, the river, the water treatment plant would be just off to the bottom right hand of the photo, or even Lindenwood Park is up on the upper right hand. So here's what the neighborhood looks like today. We were able to complete phase 1 of the project here a few years ago. That consisted of a flood wall along this area, a levee going around the point. Phase 1 ended about right at this point. The remaining work that we need to complete is all along this corridor through here, which will tie up to the water intake plant or pumping station that was modified a couple of years ago to create a line of protection through that. So the two homes that we are here to talk about tonight is this structure here as well as this structure here. As you recall, the structure here at 1458 South River Road a couple of years ago, this commission made an action to construct a flood wall in front of that home since it is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. Here's another just photo showing, or a map showing the project. So again, phase 1 has been completed over here. Phase 3 is what we're working on. Here's that flood wall over at 1458 that we are currently actively working with those property owners. We met with them as recent as last week to go through some design considerations. And then phase 2 tying into the flood wall that was complete up the water treatment plant facility, which continues all the way up to Main Avenue. So the acquisitions for this project, anywhere you see a blue boundary around one of the properties is a property that we have previously acquired. That is in total 26 full properties. In order to complete phase 1, we did acquire one easement from a property owner over here. And at this point, we still have 2 full property acquisitions remaining, as well as one necessary easement for a small little area in their front yard. Again, we are actively working with those property owners, and I fully expect we'll probably have that easement within the next month or 2. So the two properties we're here to discuss tonight is 1502 South River Road and 1514 South River Road. Here is a map of our current 100-year floodplain. But really, the maps or the inundation areas that we are looking at are these ones here, which is a blue shaded area, which designates the post 100-year floodplain plus appropriate freeboard to ensure that we do not need any emergency measures during a 100-year flood when the diversion project is in operation. So as you recall, this is the same standard that we used up and down the river corridor when the diversion authority was developing Plan B and changed the in-town flows to 37 feet from 35 feet. And it's actually the same standard that's been applied in Moorhead as well. So the two cities, Fargo and Moorhead, work concurrently to determine that these are the levels that we should be looking at and determining whether or not we need to build a levee or a flood wall. And you can see with these two properties, we do need to get a line of protection in this location to make sure that we can create that continuous line of protection so that we don't rely on the emergency measures as well as remove other structures from the future 100-year floodplain. So here's a quick timeline of where we've been at over the past handful of years. I'm not going to step.
Mr. Strand.
Sure.
Could you back up to that last slide, please? How at risk is our water treatment plant given these scenarios? And that's the whole point of part of this, isn't it? Is the water treatment plant protection?
Yes, the water treatment plant is an absolutely critical piece of infrastructure for the city. So this project is necessary to make sure that sees protection as well. So while the blue area may not be impacting the water treatment plant, of course, we know that if the floodwaters were to get out into the street of South River Road, it'll travel through the sanitary sewer system. And at that point, it's everywhere within the city.
Thank you.
Good point, John.
So here's the timeline. I'm not going to step through all this. Mainly just want to point out this started in the fall of 2015 when we hired an engineering consultant to help us design this project. About a year later, November 2016, City Commission approved the technically preferred alignment as well as the necessary property acquisitions for this project. Since then, we have acquired quite a few properties, removed those properties, been able to construct phase 1 and 2 as I indicated earlier. We also have completed a few appraisals for 1502 and 1514 South River Road over the years. Each time we have completed those appraisals, we have spoken with those property owners, tried to come to an agreement. Unfortunately, we have not been able to come to an agreement on the purchase price for those homes yet, which is why we are here tonight. Recommending this adoption of the resolution necessity for pertaining to the acquisition of these two properties at 1502 and 1514 and allow us to proceed with necessary legal action if we need to.
Any questions of Nathan?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Preston?
So I'm assuming this is the beginning of eminent domain process. Is that what we're looking at here tonight?
That's correct. Yep. This would allow us to proceed with that if necessary. Again, we fully intend to keep on negotiating with these property owners with the hopes to avoid having.
Can you just quickly walk through what that process would evolve to?
Yeah, I'd probably turn to Nancy for that.
So, as Nathan indicated, we continue to negotiate with property owners. Offers have been extended. We may need to secure additional appraisals and continue that process. But at some point, if we reach an impasse, the next step would be to actually start a legal action to secure that property.
They've had active discussion. Sean's been talking to them, and
correct.
More recently, we've talked to them as well, and the owners are not accepting the offer. So Nancy's right. We may have to reappraise it or do some other items that make it go forward. But ultimately, you may have to do eminent domain because, to Commissioner Strand's comment, it's critical for our water plant. Their water plant is right there, and if that breach is there, you're going to destroy water for the whole city. So we're very critical.
Commissioner Preston, sorry if I can interrupt quick. It's also important to point out due to the timelines of the court proceedings and with where the diversion project's construction schedule is, in order for us to make sure that we complete the necessary flood protection in this neighborhood at the same time that the diversion is going to be operational in the spring of 2027, we need to start proceeding with acquiring these homes allow.
Commissioner Peppercorn.
Just real quick, a couple of these owners, we wanted them to live in their house, but it's been 16 years. I mean, you know what I mean? We've given them, at a certain point, you have to say enough is enough, and we have to get this completed. It has to get completed, and I think, I know one of them personally, the owner has passed away.
Yes.
It's like, it's time to close the deal. So obviously, we hate to use eminent domain, but for the good of that whole neighborhood, and in 2009, Mayor, that was the neighborhood, we were this close. And so,
We evacuated that neighborhood.
so this is a legit thing, and it's just the next step in the process. We've been very fortunate to not have to use eminent domain, and we have great negotiators, but at a certain point, 16 years, you got to say, come on now. And so I will make the motion.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second, and then I have another follow-up question to
Commissioner
my
Preston.
original question. So it is a court proceeding, and there would be a hearing in front of a court about it.
That is correct, yes.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Nathan, good report, thank you. Adopt transit reorganization study, improve steps to address employment matters and interim joint powers agreement development for consideration and approval. Julie Bumbleman and Wade Klein.
Good evening, Commissioners. I was just trying to get the flashbacks of '09 out of my head. That was quite a time. Yeah, we're here this evening to discuss the transit reorganization study. I just had a few points, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Wade from KLJ, our consultant on the study. He'll go through in more detail, and then my last slide will be the requested motion. So we started a study, it's probably been a little over a year now, looking at reorganizing the transit department for a couple of reasons. One being when the population of this area went to over 200,000, we became a TMA, and there was some impacts on different funding formulas and stuff for the area when it came to our federal funding. We also are looking at the retirement of the Moorhead Transit Manager and what Moorhead wanted to do. During those discussions, it came up that they would prefer the city of Fargo take over the process and run the transit for the entire area. So on our committee, we had technical reps, we had city leadership, we had some of you as representatives on the MAP board, and state and federal partners that we have been in discussions with and have been participating all along. So tonight, like I said, we'll have Wade present the study, and then I will bring the motion before you to adopt the study. So turning it over to KLJ.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney, members of the commission. I know we did go through a good chunk of this just a couple of weeks ago, so I will keep it brief. I mean, there were 6 or 7 areas that the reorganizational study focused on, set up by a number of the items that Julie just talked about. Really a key impetus, of course, is the transition of the metropolitan area to a transit management association. Over 200,000, it gives the cities an opportunity to identify a new single designated recipient for the Federal Transit Administration funds that come into the Fargo-Moorhead metropolitan area. This is something that you all have been waiting for a long time. You've seized that opportunity now to identify the city of Fargo as the designated recipient for these funds. Of course, the study went through a couple of different ideas as far as how we would organizationally put this system back together. It will look a lot like it looks today in terms of the agreements between the city of Fargo, city of Moorhead, and some of its entities, as well as both DOTs as well. So some of the framework that the study includes is very familiar to what is currently in place. It just sort of formalizes some pieces. Some of the work that will go on beyond the study, of course, as Julie talked about, with some of the reorganizational pieces, changes and reductions in some of the federal aid that comes to the to the metropolitan area. I won't go into any gross detail of that reduction in federal aid, but there certainly are some opportunities working through the MPO, working through North Dakota DOT to try to close that gap, and I think both entities have indicated that there's an opportunity to do that. Julie talked about the process we went through to get here. One of the things that will
Wait, can I just stop you for a minute? Just go back. You say our gap that we have, I've heard is anywhere from 600, half a million to 600,000?
Okay.
I was just, so yes, I mean, with the change to a transportation management area for the Fargo-Moorhead metropolitan area, the amount of Section 5300 funding that the city of Fargo gets is reduced by about $600,000.
But you're saying there are some opportunities from the state of North Dakota and the state of Minnesota to fill that gap this year?
We're looking at, for this year in particular, probably not. We're looking at the state of North Dakota for the next legislative session to bring something before them to get.
And has somebody in the state said, yeah, we'll look at that?
We need to bring it forward from our in our legislative issues. But yes, they've been in discussions and they have not made any promises. I don't want to speak out of turn on.
No, it's pretty critical for our budget. It's almost $500,000. Commissioner Strand, you were to comment?
Thank you. I think we all need to imprint this slide on our brain. One of the downsides, I never thought I'd see a penalty to growing.
Yeah.
Now, because we're a growing community, we're losing support for transit, which is just essential. I would suggest, Mayor, that we immediately convene a meeting with our congressional delegation and our state leadership urgently, because we can't let this sit and fester in our budget processes, knowing that we've lost $1 million in our broader community in federal support for transit for people going to work. So we need to immediately convene with Senator Hoeven and Kramer and Congressman Armstrong and state leadership urgently.
So Julie's already prepared a white paper on that, Commissioner Strand, so I'd ask you to work with Mike Redlinger on this and start to move this forward. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So the development of a new map board is a key next step. The technical group that we worked with identified the appropriate designees for that. It would be a little bit different than the current map board. It would be a mix of both political and technical staff, really to respond to more of the day-to-day nature that we need the next map board to operate under, and those identified entities are listed here. That'll be a key next step in the process. Really the largest piece of this whole puzzle was working through a cost-sharing methodology between the city of Fargo and the city of Moorhead. Staff really did the majority of that work, looking at, taking the system apart, putting it back together so that they could operate a singular budget that would be fair and equitable to all its partners. So that was done both for cost sharing and revenue sharing as well. I think staff went through 10 or 11 different iterations of that to get to something that is certainly going to be, workable for the cities, but also important for both DOTs and federal funding agencies to look at that and be comfortable that the process is fair and equitable, particularly for the state and federal funds. The staffing framework is a big piece of this. Julie talked about the transition, how this has been worked up to. There have been some, agreements and, made between the two cities as far as, transitioning some of the existing staff that are currently City of Moorhead employees. I believe there are two. Those will transition in some form or fashion to being either City of Fargo employees or contracted staff. Part of the effort here is thinking about the TransDev contract and how the drivers and operators potentially transition from contracted to city staff. And so as we work through the overall study, we developed both a proposed 2025 org chart, and I would point you to the yellow boxes here. Those would be sort of new positions that would come over from the city of Moorhead, the marketing manager, the office associate 3, and then the senior accountant position. And then you would see the additional potential for 4 additional positions coming across the org chart as well in 2025. 2025 keeps the TransDev piece of the puzzle essentially as contracted, and then as we move into 2026, you'll see that the TransDev piece is distributed across the existing org chart. So those go from contracted to municipal employees. Those would be the blue boxes on the org chart that is in front of the commission here. So big piece is, of course, getting this process approved. I believe we'll be going through the City of Moorhead process in July, maybe early August, once the City Commission here has acted on it, getting an interim board in place, starting to continue that cooperation that the communities have been working on for many, many years.
So Wade, one of the things is when you become one entity, there should have been some cost savings in staffing. You're actually going up in staffing. So why wouldn't we have the gain, when we're one big entity, the ability to actually go down in staff?
The 2025 org chart, you bring over the two existing positions. You see the marketing manager and the office associate 3. The senior accountant is essentially the replacement of the Moorhead transit manager. So those responsibilities
Are net neutral. Are you saying that's net neutral then? We didn't add any more, we just had the same people on the Moorhead side. Now they're theoretically on the Fargo side?
I mean, theoretically, you're going from essentially 2 directors to 1. So you're reducing the number of administrative staff from 2 to 1.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kopak?
Yep, I have a question. So at what point will this board have the ability to really understand what these new ads are for staff and job descriptions and impact and kind of the detail for approval?
I think what we're looking at least what we've discussed internally, is for that to happen in August, so that the next meeting, the existing MAP board would transition out and the new MAP board would be put into place. So that would give us about 6 weeks to get that done, to get folks requested and get them set up for the meeting, and have the existing MAP board folks that are going to continue on be part of that.
Stern.
Thank you, Mayor. A consideration in my mind is what's next. We have these needs right now. We're already having staffing shortages. We're already having route serviceability challenges. We're just really up to our ears in trying to provide adequate transit. And I can't imagine the job you all have doing that. But then we have expansions. We have Sunday service on the horizon, and people want Sunday service. How do we accommodate Sunday service, or do we, and when? How do we accommodate workers getting to the Amazon Center in North Fargo and or to the industrial park more adequately? We just have huge issues with workforce access to jobs. And this is just a pressing issue. I hate to see us get caught with in a situation where we're just really over the barrel and unable to serve and unable to envision a better future. So with this need of other leadership stepping up and other funding coming to us so we can meet what's coming on the horizon is just critical.
Just a question. When we did the dispatch board, we had to make very careful. We eventually split it to a governance model and then an operational model in a sense. Wade, when you put that model up there with all those different partners, it seems that only 2 partners are bringing money in. It'd be Moorhead and Fargo. I mean, is Dilworth seems it's taking its cut from Moorhead. West Fargo, is West Fargo putting money in?
Yes, West Fargo is. We're a service provider for them, so it's a contract for service with them.
NDSU as well?
NDSU as well, yes.
So in your minds, when the people you put on there, it's people that actually are contributing to the costs, right?
That's correct. So
Okay.
what we've got, we're showing the North Dakota side, we've got NDSU, West Fargo, and NDDOT who put state aid in. And then on the Moorhead side, it's the City of Moorhead, MnDOT, and of course you got your federal partners out there, but Moorhead does all of it for the
They
deal.
represent any Minnesota entity.
They do,
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
correct.
And Mayor, might I continue? Where we're going is going to end up costing the riders more potentially per, what is it, $1.50 per fare now?
For an adult, yes.
For an adult now.
Yep.
In theory, I appreciate your vision of, in theory, we would provide free transit to our population down the road, or nearer free, so more people ride, more people get to work, more people. But we have to be really careful the direction we're aiming, and not have this land on the shoulders of those we service.
I think part probably of the clarification to Mayor Mahoney's point with the positions, with the Moorhead Transit Manager retiring out and that senior accountant position, that is currently fully funded by Moorhead. When that becomes part of the entity, then those costs are spread throughout. So everybody that is receiving any type of transit service that's part of this would be paying those costs. So and Moorhead has agreed to pay for that position through the end of 2024, whenever we can bring them on. So that transitions them out. They no longer have a manager on that side. And then that person is doing all the grants and all the work for both sides of the river. Part of it too, the transit development plan is upcoming. That's going to look at services. It digs very in-depth on everything, including funding. And that is currently bid out and awarded, or potentially awarded to another entity that's going to be doing that, kicking it off here in the next six to 8 weeks, probably.
To Commissioner Strand's question, to try to decide where you're headed.
I'm sorry, what was that?
To his question of where you're headed, is that?
Right,
that's
exactly.
motion?
That's
Okay,
that transit development plan.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry.
Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recommendation to approve the items from FAR staff meeting, receive and file general fund, year-to-date 2024 budget to actual, increase grant amount to Southwest Human Service Center contract from $16,000 to $18,463. Authorize an application for EECGB grant for funding to support sustainability of city operations. Susan Thompson to explain.
Hello, yes, this is the FAR report. We actually didn't meet last week, but I put this together to bring forward these few items for your consideration. We do have on page 297 the year-to-date through May for the general fund. Revenues are a little below budget, but expenditures remain even farther below. So year-to-date, we're $755,000 above the budget. And then the two requests, one is just a nominal $1,800 so they can pay out their full grant award before their expiration. And the facilities one is to piggyback on another grant that we're already using. It's for three very specific projects. I'll tell you that all three of those came through on our budget request for 2025. So if we could take them off there and fund them elsewhere, I would really like that.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. 44, presentation on homeless camps in the city of Fargo. Brenda Derrick to explain. And some others.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. In response to the last discussion at last meeting, Chandler and I will be presenting on this very important topic. So I wanted to start with, what have we been doing to date on the management of our homeless camps? So to date, we have been doing outreach to the homeless camps. It's been ongoing. In 2016, a specific outreach position was created, which has evolved to include mobile outreach and the Homeless Engagement Assistance and Response Team, which is our neighborhood outreach team downtown. In addition to community-based organizations having their own outreach positions. So historically, the Park District and the city were doing periodic cleanings of camps, which included disposing of items. Through our staff meetings last year, there's been a concern on if we were saving those important items and what we were doing with those items. And so last year, we started meeting collaboratively with harm reduction staff, police, fire, public works, and park to discuss how to manage those camps and what options we have moving forward. So a couple of things we have started doing this spring is we have started to map and track the camps internally to maintain awareness of where the camps are located and who is occupying them. We do now have an option on Fargo One, so when residents see a homeless camps or an individual sleeping outside, they do have an opportunity to report that on Fargo One. And what that does is go to harm reduction staff. They process and follow up with the location of the camp or person. So one of the things I want to talk about, we've been hearing some of this conversation on the Johnson versus Grants Pass. The Supreme Court has heard this argument. So what Grants Pass did is they did bar anyone through ordinance of sleeping in public spaces, including parks, sidewalks, and cars, or using sleeping materials for the purpose of maintaining a temporary place to live under the threat of criminal and civil penalty. In the city code, the public place was defined as city halls, community centers, police, fire stations, parking lots, traffic islands, and urban beautification areas that are owned and maintained by the city. So the district court, there has been an injunction by the district court on this ruling as of July 2020, and the circuit court also had an injunction in 2022. The 9th District Court barring the city from enforcing the ordinance. So the 9th District Court of Appeals has held the lower court's opinion that the ordinance violated the cruel and unusual punishment clause because the Grants Pass residents had no other option for shelter. So the Supreme Court has heard the arguments, and they're thinking by the end of June they should be providing a decision. So if the Johnson versus Grants Pass decision is overturned, it does allow cities to ban public camping, but it does not require them to. Knowing that we do not currently have available housing for our unhoused, we kind of started asking ourselves some questions of, do we even want to consider camping along the river, which is where we see a lot of our camping, if they aren't engaging in our services? And do we want to allow camping just in a certain area where the engagement center services are accessible?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Chandler Esslinger, and I'm the Community Liaison for Fargo Cast Public Health in the Harm Reduction Division. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of how we utilize Fargo One so that residents can report any homeless camps or individuals sleeping outside in a place not meant for human habitation. As you can see on the bottom, those are screenshots of what Fargo One looks like from a user perspective, and we have two separate options depending on how an individual may come across somebody in our community that meets those qualifications. So when someone does identify a camp or an unsheltered person, they can make that report in Fargo One, either online through the app or by calling 311. The Harm Reduction Division then receives those Fargo One reports and acknowledges that we've received them. The outreach team makes every effort to contact the camp within two business days. That's the goal that we have internally, to try to attempt to make contact with anybody in a camp. We then collect information about who's staying at the camp, try to understand what their needs are, potentially get them access to additional resources, and just encourage good neighbor-like behavior. That information is then input from Fargo One and the reports from our outreach team into ArcGIS, which is our internal monitoring tool, and that results in an updated map of camp activity and any other details the outreach team may need to know until those reports can be transferred on to another department. So this is another flow chart of a proposed way that a camp protocol could work, kind of depending on the direction of the commission tonight. So again, when camp contact is made, the outreach team works to make contact within 2 business days. And then we want to understand if that camp is currently engaging in services through the city, whether that's with our outreach team or the Downtown Engagement Center. If they are, and they are in an area that we would maybe allow somebody to camp, and they maintain in good standing, we would be able to work with that camp until we would be able to identify appropriate housing availability or shelter. If they aren't currently engaged in deck services or with the outreach team, we would work with them to build relationships to encourage that relationship. However, if they continued to not engage in deck services or they were in an unacceptable camping location and either refused to move or weren't able to move into appropriate shelter or housing, we would then begin a camp removal process. However, as we'll talk about later, our goal is to not remove camps at all, but rather move people into permanent housing.
So some of our thoughts on management of homeless camps going forward is currently the only tool we have if we are not going to allow camping or if we want to manage camping is to trespass someone from our public property. And so our thought is if we do an ordinance that does not allow camping on public property unless by resolution, that takes that trespass part out of the activity and it would be turned into like a fine. The other, in team with that ordinance, we could look at a resolution that would allow camping with maybe parameters. You could require locations, we would require rules and expectations. Some cities have required a permit and some have required a time requirement. So you can only camp at night and then you have to pack up and be moving around during the day. And so there are different requirements that could go with the resolution. And the resolution would be around while we are trying to work on a housing first policy or procedure.
So as mentioned earlier, the outreach team makes regular contact with camps that have been identified in our community. And we work with them to identify, what does good neighbor behavior look like? And so we do have some draft expectations, just to give you a high-level overview of what's possible. So expectations that would be provided to homeless camps would include both guidance for the camp itself and also what kind of support they can expect from the outreach team and the Downtown Engagement Center to maintain camp cleanliness and just be in compliance with those rules. Some expectations could include, but would not necessarily be limited to, a geographic location of where camping would be allowed, distance between camps to ensure safety and just not kind of multiple tents in one area, standards for camp cleanliness as well as supplies to maintain that camp cleanliness, a commitment to safety and nonviolence from the campers, and then also that expectation to engage with the outreach team and deck programming. So we also wanted to highlight how the approach that we have been discussing is in alignment with the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness's best practices for addressing encampments. Given the size of our communities, these standards are able to be scaled up or scaled down, kind of depending on what you're dealing with. And so as you can see, the first four principles there are kind of the guiding principles that we've utilized up until this point in how we are managing outreach and also working interdepartmentally to come up with a protocol that would be appropriate. So we have engaged multiple departments within the city as well as our community-based organizations to identify what an appropriate response would look like. As our outreach team has met with people living in camps currently, there's been broad consensus that they would be willing to engage with the outreach team in the Downtown Engagement Center in maintaining that camp compliance. And we've been able to address some of those basic needs. And if we were able to move folks into permanent housing, work with them to pack up their camps and move into that location. And so now kind of the next step is identifying how we can abide by principles 5 and 6, which is really ensuring that either access to shelter or housing options are available, and that we are developing those pathways to permanent housing and supports, which of course leads us to principle 7, which is the hope that if we are able to successfully do this, we would have no camps along the river because everybody would have access to the shelter or housing resources they need. So just a quick overview of what Housing First is and kind of how it applies to our community is that Housing First is an approach that offers access to permanent housing as quickly as possible for individuals experiencing homelessness, and then provide support services and connections to community-based resources to maintain that housing stability and prevent a return to homelessness. That's really what's unique about the Housing First approach compared to traditional models, is that these teams work continuously to keep people in their homes so that return to homelessness does not occur.
So yeah, and I thought it was a great time for James Matthey to come back next week. I think the timing was really good. We got to spend some more time with him and visit with him, and we continue to visit with him, and he's very excited about our community. It's really interesting. As people come to Fargo, they seem to get very excited and about the community engagement of wanting to do something also. So we continue to visit with James Matthey to work towards Housing First, and also working with staff on what a plan would look like if we could move towards that Housing First model.
So as I already mentioned, one of the pieces that we're missing is that consistent pathway to permanent housing. And so Mr. Matthey's presentations back in February really outlined how Milwaukee has utilized both a Housing First approach with a master leasing strategy. And this combination of approaches helps remove barriers to housing for individuals who would maybe not be as successful navigating housing on their own, and then of course ensuring that they remain housed. Milwaukee chose to combine these approaches because of the slim availability of affordable housing in Milwaukee and to ensure that those appropriate support services were available. That is a really crucial part of Housing First, is ensuring that people who are moving into permanent housing have access to the services they need in order to meet all of their needs and again maintain that housing stability. Using this approach, Milwaukee has seen a housing retention rate of 97% with participants in their Housing First program and a 91.8% reduction of unsheltered street homelessness in 5 years. And their population that qualified under that definition is quite larger than ours. And just as Brenda mentioned, on Tuesday, June 18th, we did have a really successful event where over 150 of our community members got together to learn about a solution to homelessness through the documentary Beyond the Bridge. And this documentary heavily features the Milwaukee approach of both Housing First and a master leasing strategy. And we included the link to the film trailer on the presentation for you as well. So what we would like to propose as kind of a companion to homeless camp expectations and protocol is a Fargo Streets to House pilot project. So this is something we would like to explore. We would like to explore 10 scattered site master lease units throughout Fargo. This would of course require partnerships with one or more property managers to identify those units. These 10 units would be used to move people who are currently camping outside directly into permanent housing and ending their homelessness. This pilot project would also need to include a case manager to oversee the movement into permanent housing and the provision of those support services and the connection to those community-based resources that are really the bread and butter of Housing First and ensure that housing stability. When talking with our local outreach team, movement of 10 individuals into permanent housing would reduce the unsheltered homeless population along the river by an estimated 50%.
So knowing that we do not have enough housing for all of our unhoused, these are some of our requests. We have not had a conversation yet with the commission and the leadership, and so just understanding what your thoughts and desires are, we would be looking at pursuing a draft ordinance that would not allow camping on public lands except by resolution. And then we'd be looking at input of, what would you like to see in that draft resolution if we are going to be allowed camping in certain areas with certain requirements in according with the Housing First philosophy. And then also, would you like to see us continue to work towards drafting a Fargo Streets to House pilot project? So these are the 3 items that we are bringing forward for discussion.
Questions by commission or comments? Commissioner Preston.
This is a really thorough look at an approach, it sure sounds like. What I'm a little bit confused about, it seems like the most immediate issue here are the encampments. Are you suggesting that those would get delayed until all of this is in place? The draft, or the ordinance and the resolution and policy? Or are you looking at something more immediate?
So I'm going to start and then Chandler can jump in. So we have been taking even though they have not been approved by the leadership, we have been talking to the people camping and talking to them about expectations and and desires and right now I think it's been embraced by the people that are by the river that we care enough that we want to have some rules along with them camping. So we have been having those conversations. Our outreach team has been having those conversations with the people camping along the river. We have just started assembling some information as to what a pilot project could look like. We don't have that completely assembled yet, but we will continue to work on it. The ordinance will take some time to move through the system. And so these are kind of our first steps.
If I could do a follow-up.
Mr. Preston.
So currently, with what you're currently doing, you have enough staff resources to actually connect with people in the encampments?
Yes, outreach would remain ongoing, kind of regardless, because that's the role that we play in harm reduction. And so this is really an opportunity, I think, to marry both the public's concerns around camps as well as the health and well-being of people living along the river and ensuring that we're meeting their needs as much as possible while we try to find those pathways to permanent housing.
Chandler, one of the concerns Commissioner Pipcorn brought up was on the north side where river had gone up and people were moving closer to homes. Are we addressing those issues?
Yes, so there would, given the permission of the commission, we would look into some geographic limitations to ensure that outreach can be done consistently based on the capacity of our outreach team and that they would be in proximity to resources like the Downtown Engagement Center. And so the preference would be to either relocate camps from a more residential area to a place along the river that has been kind of designated as an allowable place. But ultimately, what we would prefer is not to have to relocate anybody at all, but really explore that master leasing pilot project to just move people directly into housing.
I would assume the residents on the north side would like somebody moved somewhere, so we would address those issues.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Any other, Commissioner Pipcorn?
So, Mr. Chairman, obviously, I have lots of problems with this whole thing, so we'll have lots of time to discuss it. But first of all, Lindenwood, we have a campground there. That's where you have campground. If we allow this, it's not just for homeless. You can't discriminate. Everyone should be able to camp then along the river. You can't just have certain groups. That's discrimination. And so, if you allow camping, and that's in all city-owned land, if they can camp, then you can camp. And so that's what we have to keep in mind. You can't just say, oh, it's only for certain people, then it's going to be okay. And so there's a lot of people that have houses that are along the river that are not going to be pleased with you have camping along the river. And then on top of that, right now, what do we have? Flooding. And then on top of that, what do we have? Sanitation issues with health. Where are the bathrooms and all those going to be placed? Because right now there are some, and obviously we know people are not using restrooms, they're using wherever they're camping. So it's not healthy. It's a public safety issue. So we got lots of issues, but I think, I honestly, I don't even know where to start. But to me,
Well, they're pursuing an ordinance, so you'd like them to pursue an ordinance, no camping in public property.
well, no, I mean, we have campgrounds. If you have a designated campground with restrooms and all that, that's what we have. Every place else, you can't camp there. Is that confusing? It seems confusing to you.
We don't have an ordinance, Dave, so we have to pass an ordinance.
Well, what concerns me even more was the Park District up to this point was telling people they couldn't be on Park District land. I don't know if it was our city attorney or our police, but somebody told the Park District, you can't remove people. You can't tell them they can't be on encampments on Park District land. That concerns me because to me, that's crossing the line from being an attorney to telling other people how to run their business. So I don't know how that all went, but something happened where our park district was instructed to no longer remove people that were in encampments. So this is a huge issue, and we have lots of time to discuss it, but I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, the number that we could, with housing accommodations, get 10 people out into permanent housing and off the camps, and that would be 50% of our camping population. I go, let's go to 20 now. Let's step it up to what our needs are. There's not much difference between 10 and 20. That's my first thought. A question that occurs to me is, what type of cross-jurisdictional partnering is there with Moorhead in Minnesota? If we have jurisdictional, we're on North Dakota side, they're on the Minnesota side. I don't know what this will mean in that geographic bigger picture, but we need partners on both sides to embrace these approaches to housing people that aren't housed. And lastly, as I look at these three options you've presented to us, I kind of bristle a little bit, but I don't know if it's based on knowledge or fear. I bristle at the first one where we would have an ordinance making homelessness illegal potentially. And we don't even have, I mean, what are we going to start putting people in jail? You know, that's one of my concerns is the unintended consequences of that. And I think there's lots of city jurisdictions across the country who've had experience with that issue of making homelessness illegal. So I look forward to where we're going. I think the impetus from Mr. Matthews in the Milwaukee approach is embraced in our community. I don't know that you're asking us for final determinations today, are you? And last thing I'll say to you, Chandler, and to Jan and to harm reduction people in public health is, please guide us so we don't misstep and do something that your best judgment says don't do that. I've learned over the years, listen to the people who know what they're talking about and breathe life into their vision and needs. So please guide us and make sure we're not misstepping politically on something that this is your world and your service area of provision. So I'm looking to learn more.
Mr. Kopech.
Yeah, thank you for this information. It is thorough. I think it hits on some really complex, challenging problems that not only our community is facing, but cities and communities across the country right now. But also recognizing we still have limited resources to address some of these issues, and we also have to work with several community partners that are also in this space and engage them in the right way. And it's going to take time because of the complexities and because of the limited resourcing. But I would like to see us pursue all three of these now within expectations that are manageable moving forward. We're currently in our budgeting process. And come back with these recommendations for a thoughtful discussion that begins with information and data and best practices. So I appreciate these next steps. I certainly also am very interested in the pilot of the master leasing strategy as well. I think that's a good next step that is real tangible to folks, and we can start engaging different community members in helping solve for this problem. But by doing nothing, it's not going to go away. We have some real issues that we are going to have to figure out collectively what are the solutions for within a budget that's confined. And we also, last comment, to your point earlier about working with legislators, which I also asked for when we had the transit brown bag, that needs to start sooner than later. We also need to be working with our area legislators on this issue. And where is possible funding sources, state and federally, to address the challenges that we have. And final comment, the Housing First strategy also is not about the city of Fargo buying homes for homeless people. That's not what this approach is about. It's about working with local area partners and agencies and leveraging resources that exist, for instance, in vouchers and other wraparound services and the mobile outreach unit, which is partially state funded, is so important. And that alleviates pressures from both our fire, police, and other departments that are also part of this complex issue. So a lot to think about. But again, for me, pragmatically, it starts with the information and the recommendations for a thoughtful discussion. So thank you.
Just so the commission understands, when we're talking about drafting an ordinance, presently, the only ordinance we have to is it's a criminal offense, basically, which puts them in jail, John. What we're talking about is doing an ordinance as a misdemeanor. So it allows that, you don't allow it, but it's a misdemeanor or fine or community service or something else. So you're not criminalizing the issue. You're just changing it. But we don't have an ordinance. That's what we have to look on and look at. And if you're going to move them into housing first, we don't have a budget to do 20, but we have a budget to do 10. And that's what the staff has identified. We'd love to have 20 or 30. But again, to your comments, Commissioner Kolpak made, we haven't even looked at the health. But Jennifer's doing her job, and we have to look, Health Department, State of North Dakota, other options to help us in the funding, grants, writing, different things like that. But it is time, I agree with Commissioner Kolpak, let's look at it, continue working at it, and all commissioners are invited to give feedback and information to you. We have a new commissioner coming on, she can give feedback. Let's get an idea of where you want to go, but let's not put it in a back burner and not address. Let's continue to address it over the summer. I do want to congratulate the harm reduction team and the police force right now. You're working very hard at this issue. We've seen great improvement downtown. We've seen great things happen. I've been to at least 2 events in Broadway Square last week, well attended, love for people out, and it was a great time for everybody. So, and we'll continue that. We have the police picnic this week as well. But Somalis are having something Friday. So we continue to engage the downtown, and Chandler, your team does continued engagement with the people that we need them to engage with. So thank you for that. Mr. Preston, one last word?
I would just make a motion that we direct staff to pursue the draft ordinance, the resolution, and the pilot project.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that item? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Liaison Commissioner assignment updates. Commissioner Strand.
I'll be quick and brief. We had one birthday the other day, Commissioner Kolpak and Mayor Mahoney's right around the corner. With 5 of us, you don't have many birthdays to endure. Juneteenth was a great event downtown. You know, I heard from one of our planners and participants with the Juneteenth event, and the description was what a calm, necessary event in our downtown. And I thought, what an interesting perspective. It was calm, and it was very family-oriented. So what a diverse community we have, and great to see that square, Broadway Square, being used for events of that nature.
Mr. Kolpak.
Yeah, I have 3 slides, which is a nice segue from Commissioner Strand's update. But last Friday, which was June 21st, also my birthday, was firefighter graduation, where I just have to share this because AC and I talked about this before the meeting tonight, that I don't mean this to be self-serving, but they did wish me happy birthday at the fire graduation, and last year at the police picnic, the police officers sang happy birthday to me, so they outdid the firefighters. So a little challenge there to you all, just kidding. So we had 4 firefighters graduate from Fargo and 5 from West Fargo, but the 4 from Fargo, and it just happened to all be gentlemen on Friday. We've had both female and male graduates in the past, but all 4 were gentlemen: Brock Reller, Brennan Kessler, Tanner Hedinger, and Christian Fromm. And it was a really nice turnout. We held it at the West Fargo new fire station, beautiful facility. And again, it's an example of the Joint Fire Academy, which is an outstanding collaboration between Fargo and West Fargo, including the training, and it continues to be a huge success in producing high-quality firefighters to serve our entire metro area. And also, 11 job offers were made for the next class of the Joint Firefighter Academy that will start on July 8th. Also, construction of Fire Station Number 8, which we've talked quite a bit about, and there's some nice photos here, is 85 to 90% complete, and it's along 33rd Street and 64th Avenue South. You saw it tonight on some of the planning updates, and it will continue to serve growing neighborhoods to the south end of Fargo. And it's on schedule to be opened and staffed by October 28th, 2024. And the last slide, again, just bears repeating, and we heard today from Jim Kershaw from the Bismarck counterparts in water treatment. Again, congratulations for winning the American Water Works Association's annual conference. We took second place in People's Choice of the best tasting water, and that's quite an accomplishment for the city of Fargo, and again, a testament to the water treatment team. So thank you.
If you look at the red and look how it comes out, it's fantastic. Great job by that team. Commissioner Preston.
Just want to say thank you to the public for entrusting this job to me for the last 4 years. And a big thank you to staff. It's been a pleasure working with you all these last 4 years as well. So, and if there was a microphone to drop, I would do that right now.
Commissioner Pepcorn.
No update.
Okay. We have resident comments. You all know the rules. The first person up is Prairie Johnson.
My name's Prairie Johnson. I'm a resident of Fargo. Thanks, Arlette, for everything you've done, and congratulations to John and Michelle. More than 47,431 human beings have been slaughtered by Israel. Experts are speculating that that number of people massacred is much higher because of the deliberate attack on civilian infrastructure and forced starvation. That number includes at least 151 journalists, 498 healthcare workers, and 197 UN staff. At least 31 children have died of malnutrition and starvation, and another 50,000 children are in need of immediate medical treatment for malnutrition. Have you seen what malnutrition does to a child's body? Have you seen babies whose chubby cheeks have vanished, mini breathing skeletons? Can you imagine that for the children in your life? Take a second. Are there children you cherish? Do they have sweet, round faces? Now imagine, through no fault of your own, you have nothing to ease their pain, no food to give them, forced to watch them turn into bones with sunken cheeks and eyes. I saw a baby whose belly is so blown up it looks like they could pop, their little tummy stretched out, bigger than their head. Maybe the doctors in the room know what kind of infections can cause that. It's truly disturbing, the lack of empathy from this commission and the greater government. It's absolutely insane. Do you think it's acceptable for your own kids and family to be murdered for choices made by others? Would you accept a foreign government to choose if you can feed your family? Would you accept your child Excuse me?
It came back.
I'd like a written response today. How much do you get paid to be at these meetings? And why do you think the business and concerns of the people are not your concerns? Why do you think it's okay to ignore us and to try to curtail our free speech? Why do you think some kids are worthy of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and some are not? I'd like a written response by everyone, including Dave.
Andrew Nelson.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Nelson, and I've been a Fargo resident for about 17 of the last 19 years. Tonight, I'd like to urge you to adopt a resolution supporting a permanent ceasefire in the Middle East that was unanimously passed by the Fargo Human Rights Commission. Earlier this month, a commission established by the United Nations Human Rights Council found that, quote, the Israeli security forces' intentional use of heavy weapons with large destructive capacity in densely populated areas constitutes an intentional and direct attack on the civilian population, particularly affecting women and children." Unquote. They added that this was confirmed by the substantial and increasing numbers of casualties over recent weeks and months, and that there had been no change in Israeli policies or military strategies. I have no doubt that we all look forward to the day this conflict comes to an end. In the meantime, as many Fargo community members are struggling to come to terms with the fact that dozens of their family members have been murdered by weapons that our city helped to pay for, I ask that you will take this opportunity to express your support for a lasting peace by approving this resolution. Some of you have justified your refusal to endorse a ceasefire by saying that global politics are beyond your purview. But as has been mentioned before, that didn't prevent a unanimous vote to approve a boycott of businesses working with Russia when Russia invaded Ukraine a couple of years ago. Approval of this resolution will be far more meaningful than simply chiming in on a policy that already had broad support at state and federal levels. I realize it may feel awkward to speak out against the wholesale slaughter of civilians in a military action that continues to be propped up by our own government. I recognize that it requires a higher level of integrity to stand up for what is right and just when doing so requires advocating a change of course. I hope that you will still find the courage to do so. Thank you.
We have virtually for Rifa Listine. Are we on or no? That person, right? We are done with public comment. Thank you.